I was 16 during my junior year of high school, where the school day consisted of 9 periods. Fifth period was lunch, immediately followed by my astronomy class. This class was held in one of the 2 basement classrooms of our large high school, which had 3 floors. The school was so big that they had to build 2 basement classrooms to accommodate all the classes. Honestly, it felt a bit creepy down there when it was empty. The space had once been a janitorial area, but was remodeled to resemble a typical hallway. However, there were no intercoms or loudspeakers in the basement at that time, which meant that no classes were held there during first period for the morning announcements. Everyone called this small section of the basement the chamber. Students often hoped to have classes there because it was air-conditioned and the classes were typically easier. Plus, there was a bathroom down there. On that particular day, we had a quiz in astronomy. I usually finished quickly because I found the class easy. After completing my quiz, I texted my friend, who was in the other basement classroom, to meet me in the bathroom since I was bored. He agreed. I walked out of the classroom and down the small hallway to the bathroom. A few seconds later, my friend JJ entered. We joked around for a while until JJ checked his phone and said someone had texted him that the school was going on lockdown. We exchanged excited grins. Neither of our teachers had noticed us leave the classrooms, which meant we had free reign of the school during the lockdown. We decided to sneak upstairs and explore the hallways just for fun. The worst that could happen was that we'd explain how we couldn't hear the announcements from the basement. When we opened the basement door to the main floor, we were surprised to find all the lights turned off, leaving the hallways nearly pitch black except for the lights spilling in from the lobby doors. This was unusual, as the lights were typically left on during lockdowns. Something felt off, and we hesitated to walk around. JJ stepped further into the hallway, and I followed. He then looked down the hall and said, "Who's that?" Emerging from the darkness was a man. At first, we couldn't tell if he was a teacher, but as he got closer, we realized he was dressed like a homeless person. "All right, let's go," I told JJ, and we hurried back to the basement. The man had definitely seen us. We noticed that both classrooms had their doors shut and lights off, so to avoid making a scene, we decided to hide in the bathroom. I turned off the light immediately, and we both squeezed into the corner stall. The silence was deafening. There was no ventilation or heating, just the sound of our breathing and the occasional drip from the sink. Suddenly, the bathroom door swung open, and light flooded the room for a brief moment before the door closed again, plunging us back into darkness. JJ and I tried to control our breathing. The silence was so intense that we could hear someone walking toward our side of the bathroom. The person stopped and began breathing heavily, as if out of breath. We were terrified. JJ whispered in my ear, "We have to crawl out through the other stalls." However, even his whisper echoed in the quiet room. The heavy breathing outside our stall stopped, and the person pressed against the stall door. "Go, go," I whispered urgently to JJ. We crawled under the sidewall to the next stall, then to the next, and finally slipped out the other side of the bathroom. The person outside was now banging on the stall door. JJ and I jumped up, opened the door, and as the light filled the room again, we saw the man from upstairs in the corner. We pounded on the door to JJ's classroom. The teacher let us in within seconds. JJ explained everything as the teacher locked the door, mentioning that he had seen a gun sticking out of the man's pocket. I was shocked to hear this because I hadn't seen a gun, but I went along with it. Usually, high school students would laugh at a scene like this, but all the kids sitting in the corner looked genuinely concerned. A sudden bang on the door made everyone jump, and a couple of girls squealed in fear. JJ, the teacher, and I could see the man standing at the door, peering through the window while trying the doorknob. After a few more bangs, he turned and walked down the hallway back to the stairs. We weren't sure how much longer the lockdown lasted, but for over an hour, we sat in silence, with the teacher occasionally asking JJ and me questions, shaking his head in disbelief at our story. Eventually, someone from upstairs called the teacher, who instructed us to line up and walk single file up the stairs and out of the building, where we were greeted by police. JJ and I did our best to describe the man to the cops and the dean. One of the officers patted me on the back, and we were sent home. After this incident, the school installed security cameras everywhere and increased the security budget. The event didn't receive media attention, so we never found out if the police caught the man. I'm convinced he intended to harm us in that bathroom stall. I am a retired police officer from New Jersey. Throughout my 20 years on the force, the most disturbing call I ever received was for a lockdown at a nearby middle school, which I'll leave unnamed for legal reasons. It happened on a stormy, dark day. My car number was called on the radio to respond to a lockdown after a suspicious-looking man was seen exiting a white van parked behind the school and entering through the back door by the boys' locker room. I arrived at the back parking lot next to the white van, which was empty, with all doors and the trunk locked. I opened the red back door that led into the gym hallway by the locker rooms. The main lights were off, making the interior of the school dark. I unholstered my flashlight and used it to navigate the halls. When I reached the lobby, a woman emerged from the front office, quietly telling me to check the boys' locker room, but to be careful because the person might be armed. I called for backup on my radio and was assured that help was on the way. I returned to the hallway I had entered from, finding the boys' locker room right next to the exit. I pushed the door open quietly. There were no windows in the room, so it was completely dark except for the light from my flashlight. A faint white noise came from a vent on the ceiling, but I also heard faint scratching noises or little dings coming from the locker doors on the other side. I knew I was supposed to announce my presence as a police officer, but I was too scared. The tension in the room was palpable. Holding my flashlight in one hand and my gun in the other, I crept to the other side of the locker room. It seemed that wherever I moved, the dings and thuds came from a different direction. I stood in the corner of the locker room by the bathroom door when I heard someone slam a locker door from another room, making me jump. I moved toward the sound and realized it came from the boys' football team locker room, which had no door separating it from the main locker room. The lockers in this area were significantly larger. Finally, I mustered the courage to shout, "Police!" A boy's muffled scream for help echoed from somewhere in the room. He pounded on a locker door on the other side of the row I was in. When I realized the boy was trapped inside a locker, I felt sick to my stomach. I told him I'd be right back, then ran outside to where the white van had been parked. It was gone. My biggest mistake was not getting the license plate number right away. I told dispatch to be on the lookout for a suspicious white van. I rushed back into the school and instructed the front office staff to end the school day and send someone with a key to the locker room to free the boy. He had been held by the man, who had a knife pressed to his back, apparently trying to get the 12-year-old boy to his van. The boy was bleeding from his arm due to cuts sustained while resisting. The man's van was spotted a week later in a 7-Eleven parking lot, where he was arrested after being properly identified. I was staying at a Hampton Inn in New Jersey while visiting Rowan University, a college I was considering attending. My family couldn't accompany me, so I was on my own. After attending campus tours, I went to a nearby restaurant for dinner and returned to the hotel around 8 p.m., planning to visit campus again the next day. About an hour after returning to my room, a strange alarm began sounding, accompanied by a flashing white light in the corner of the ceiling. A looping message followed, instructing all Hampton Inn guests to remain in their rooms due to a lockdown. I had never heard of a hotel lockdown and didn't even know hotels had alarms like this. Initially, I found it more interesting than alarming. Eventually, the sound of the alarm stopped, but the light continued flashing, and the message repeated every 20 seconds. It was only around 9:30, so I turned on the TV for background noise while I changed clothes and brushed my teeth. After shutting off the lights, I crawled under the covers and watched TV for about half an hour before turning it off. The flashing light was disruptive, and I considered calling the front desk to inquire about the situation. When the phone rang, it was someone from the front desk. I anticipated they would provide information about the alarm and when it would stop, but instead, the voice on the other end was very concerned. She told me to remain calm and exit my room immediately. I took the opportunity to ask what was happening. She informed me that someone was in my room and urged me to get out right away. I dropped the phone and instinctively began searching the room. Part of me was curious if someone was actually there. I checked under the bed and looked in the empty bathroom. No one was there. Then I noticed the closet door next to the bathroom. It was slightly ajar, and through the crack, I saw a person's face. At first, I didn't fully grasp what I was seeing, but when the door slid shut, I panicked and ran out the door. The front desk staff showed me security footage from an hour earlier, revealing a suspicious-looking man wandering the hallways, apparently searching for a specific room. He had opened my door with a card he somehow obtained. I stayed to watch as authorities escorted the man out in handcuffs. He looked at me as he passed, and for a moment, it felt as if he recognized me. It's frightening to think he may have been watching me for over an hour from that closet. If you liked this video, like and subscribe, and let me know what topic you want to hear of next.